Hi everyone, welcome to the Icon Contemporary Dialogue. It is 11 here in New York, and it is 8:30 in the evening in India, 8 p.m. in Pakistan. Welcome everyone. Today we will be joined by Ellie Clark of the Armory Show, and we'll be talking about a post-pandemic art world, what that means, where things she sees all this going, and so look forward to have hi Swagata. Look forward to having a wonderful conversation. Plenty of people joining, and I see Ellie just came on. Hi Pulak, and there she is. I should be able to bring her in. Lots of people joining us, and Ellie should be live in just a second. Oh, there she is.
Hello.
Hi, Ellie. Hi.
How are you?
I am very good, and thank you for doing this.
Of course.
Yeah. So I first met Ellie. I don't know if I met her like 3 years ago when we showed Abdullah's work at Armory, but for sure I met her and spoke to her extensively when we showed Katya's work. I hope Katya will join us too, Katya Larson. And we've been kind of in touch, and it's the same town after all. So Ellie's been to the gallery a couple of times to meet us. And today I would love to talk to you, hear from you of the contours of a post-pandemic art world. And there's Katya, there's Dhara is joining us too from, so we have people from all over the world already. So Dhara's in Bangalore, Katya's in London. We're of course here in New York. So what do you think the post-pandemic art world will look like, especially from an art fair perspective, which is so physical and so in not just the moment, but in the place? Where do you think we are headed?
Well, I think we can expect that things will be a bit more regional for the next few years, I would imagine. Of course, I'm just speculating. I mean, people have been very cooped up and might, be traveling all over the world again as soon as they're vaccinated and able to. So, but I think that for the fair, what we are focusing on is, I think that physical presence has become even more important. And what I noticed in going around to galleries in New York when things were reopening is that people were so relieved to see art in person, to talk in person, to have these face-to-face interactions. Something that I think we all felt a little fatigued by or kind of jaded by pre-pandemic. And I think that there's a renewed appreciation for that. So I think the fairs will be kind of more important than ever in that you're bringing such an international presence of galleries and artists and collectors to one space, that I just think there's going to be a very renewed excitement around that. So that's kind of what we are planning on, how to facilitate that as best we can while putting into place like social distancing measures and everything to make people feel safe while we're still very much, COVID is still a reality among us. So we have to kind of prepare for that and making things as safe as possible while also knowing that there's this, energy and excitement around being in person again.
So let me ask you your attendance list, your gallery list for this September. And by the way, folks, those of you who've been not sort of keeping tabs on this, the Armory Show is just amazing in terms of either its good fortune or its great timing, or a little bit of both.
I think
Because
a little bit
they
of both.
are the only art fair, only venue of this stature that I know of that did not skip a year. So they had their last edition in 2020, and the lockdown, at least here in New York, started almost like 3 days after they ended. And then at that time, they announced that they would be moving venues to the Javits Center, moving time of year into the fall. And so lo and behold, 2020 Armory happened, and 2021 Armory is coming up in September. So do you have more or less the same attendees list, same gallery list? Do you see any differences there? You did mention something interesting about the regional thing, and I want to kind of ask you a little bit more about that.
Yeah, of course. I think exhibitor wise, we're seeing relatively the same, breakdown of countries, and everything that we've seen in the past will be about 50% international. Um, and so that is looking really similar. Obviously, we've had some new galleries that are returning after a hiatus from the fair, which is really exciting. Some galleries that participate every single year, so that is looking relatively the same. I think our visitor list will be more regional, but we already, in being in New York, operate with a primarily local visitor base, whether that's collectors and VIPs or, our ticket buyers. So I don't know that for us it will look that different. I think it will be slightly more like a higher percentage of New Yorkers and tri-state area people. And I think maybe nationally we'll actually see an uptick, and we might see a slightly lower international visitor rate, just while, things are still, I think by September, it's also going to be a very different story. I mean, as you know, being in New York, things have just changed so rapidly and kind of unexpectedly. I mean, in January, I did not expect that, I'd be fully vaccinated before the summer. So the timeline is, with COVID, is just, we can't predict it, but I think we're very much trending in the right direction. And, by September, perhaps we will have an even more international visitor list than we had previously, because people are so excited to come back to a fair of this scale. But yeah, so I guess to answer your question, I can't totally predict, but I think in terms of exhibitors, we're seeing around the same, breakdown that we've always seen, and I would expect we'll see slightly more regional attendance
So
from visitors.
none of your exhibitors are saying, hey, Armory, we are not going to be making it this year. We want to come back in 2022, but this year we are there's no, that sort of thing is not happening. You're instead seeing more or less the same people coming back and
Yeah, it's relatively the same. I mean, I think we are in touch more regularly with people than we have been, just to like suss out how they're feeling. Obviously we can, keep tabs on the news, but really hearing like the on the ground stories of this is how we're feeling right now, and these are how things are looking in London or in South Africa or, wherever. So we're just trying to have as many of those conversations as we can and really get a sense of how people are, feeling. And I think the overall sentiment that I've heard from everyone is like, we want to be there, and we will, do our darndest to be there. So that's kind of it. That's been a little different this year.
So you said something interesting when we were kind of prepping for this, by saying that there's certain aspects of the fair, like the the speaker series and the sort of curator forums. Those things are going digital, and probably going digital for good, and that's where they will reside. And we just briefly also talked about the New York City, the council meetings, the local. I was just telling you about how
right. Yes.
now everyone shows up. These things are like hugely oversubscribed, and there are people like falling over each other because it's digital and it's possible. So you did say some of your program is going to migrate, and possibly for good.
Yeah, I don't know if that means for good in the next 10 years or how long that period will be, but I think, as I was saying, we've had so much success with the virtual Armory Live program that we've done, and it allows us to, bring panelists from all over the world together in a very, kind of easy, convenient way for them. And I don't see that changing for the fair. We might have in-person components that are also, broadcasted digitally. That hasn't been determined yet, but the virtual programming part has been really great for us. We've launched 2 virtual initiatives that are, besides the virtual Armory Live, which is the Armory Access and Armory Access Curated. Armory Access was kind of right when the pandemic started. We featured exhibitions from all of our Presents exhibitors, exhibitions that had to close or weren't able to be seen due to the pandemic. And then we just launched recently Armory Access Curated, which is a curated exhibition with 2021 exhibitors and select curators. It was Daniel Palmer for the first iteration, and then we have Cesar Garcia doing the upcoming iteration in June. And so they come up with an exhibition theme and select works from our 2021 exhibitors, and that's been a really amazing way to engage with our exhibitors throughout the year, because we did have this 18-month hiatus with switching to the Javits Center. So it's been a way for us to kind of stay in touch with everyone virtually.
And are you rolling out, can you give us a sense of a sneak peek of things that you will do differently this year? And that is maybe because of the pandemic or maybe because of other reasons, but are there technologies that will be new and for the first time? Will the fair be very different? Yeah, what can you tell us about that?
Yeah, well, the fair will be very different just because it's at a different venue. So that's going to be, I think, you know, people have gotten really used to, we've been at the Piers for almost 20 years. So people are very used to that experience. And the Javits Center will be, I think, an enhanced experience for exhibitors and visitors. It's a huge space. It's beautiful, state of the art, you know, temperature controlled, all those things that everyone likes. So I think just the overall like visitor experience, when you walk in, there'll just be so much more space. So we have enhanced, or we've grown the overall footprint of the fair, but we haven't really grown the number of galleries. So we've really put a lot of that space into making wider aisles, larger lounges, just having it be a more, like, there's better sight lines for all the galleries. It's just a, you know, I think a nicer experience overall. So that will be different. We are also switching to a digital VIP card and digital ticketing system. That's been something we've wanted to do for a while. And this year it made sense to do that, particularly just because we've had this long lead time up to the fair.
Right.
You know, 18 months is a while to plan this. Obviously, you're starting with a brand new floor plan and brand new venue. So there's all these things we kind of knew going into it before that we've had to learn for the first time this year. So that's been a lot of what we've done, but it's also allowed us to do some of these things we've wanted to do, like the digital VIP card, that we needed slightly more than a calendar year to kind of suss that all out. So that'll be a new feature this year, which we're excited about. And some of that, you know, it works well for COVID. It's great to, you know, not have the physicality of the ticket, but it also is just something that I think people are getting used to and expecting. Other than that, I don't know what will be that different. As I said, I think a lot of our Armory Live programming will be, you know, a hybrid of digital and in person. And then we're just really focusing on the physical fair and
now, maybe I should have asked you this sooner, and I'm sure lots of people have asked you, but why this big change? Why did you kind of, I mean, I have a sense that being an exhibitor, the physical infrastructure was kind of a little wanting, but it is an art fair. It's not like, you know, the new product launch for Apple. You know, there are many art fair venues that are even worse. But why did you abandon, and also changing the time slot in the year for a fair as big as the Armory? What are the implications of it? What fairs that, you know, you used to kind of be pretty close to a certain group of fairs in the spring, and now you'll be up close to a different group of fairs. What was the reasoning behind all of this?
Well, the main reasoning for switching the venue is that we wanted a space where we could have all our exhibitors under one roof. As you know, we were Pier 94 and Pier 92, and then Pier 90 and Pier 94. And it just didn't feel like the best, you know, experience for everyone. I think it was no matter where you were, you could kind of look at the other side and have concerns about that. So I think we just really felt like it would behoove the fair as a whole and all our exhibitors if they could be all in one cohesive space. So finding a space of that size that's in Manhattan is really challenging. And
Right.
we looked at a lot of venues and we, considered all the options of, whether we would downsize or not, but we've, are very loyal to our exhibitors and we wanted to find a space that suited them as best we
Mm-hmm.
could. And the Javits Center is amazing. I mean, it's an incredible facility. So with that, uh, you know, venue change came certain dates that were available, and this was the best option of those. I think obviously September is a much nicer time to travel to New York than
Yeah,
March. We're not
I would
dealing
agree.
with the potential blizzards. And September in New York just has this, I mean, I think probably everywhere, but has this amazing like back to school feeling where new museum shows are opening, everyone's back from the summer. Like it's just so exciting to be here at that time.
Right.
And we really felt like the Armory Show could bring a new excitement to that by bringing international visitors and galleries and just kind of broadening that even more.
Sure. So it was driven by the availability of the Javits Center, and that's kind of was the foundation of the move that you made.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It'll be very exciting. I mean, the Javits Center is, of course, as many folks that are from New York will know, is large. It's a convention. I mean, they're also
Yeah.
showing cars, and they're also showing boats, and they're also showing art now. So it'll be an interesting place. But what's great is accessibility to the West Side in general is kind of hard. But with the number 7 train and the Hudson
Yeah.
Yards station, I think the one thing the Javits Center will be much better off is, those lines of people that you see crossing the West Side Highway, and I wonder if anyone's ever been run over or something like that. That I think is going to be a thing of the past.
Yes, absolutely. It's such a game changer to have that accessibility and you can run out for lunch at Hudson Yards if you need to, and Chelsea's right there, the High Line's right there. Like it's such a cultural hub already. So it really is a superior location for us,
Correct,
definitely.
correct. And this also is an unusual year for you guys because you have like 18 months between two shows.
Yeah.
And that'll be that holiday, that beach vacation will be soon over, and
It
you'll.
wasn't too much of a vacation, I can promise you that. But yes, no, we will as I said, like it's planning a whole new fair in a lot of ways when you've had a floor plan that you rely on and vendors that and all of that, and a lot of that is changing for us. So it's been kind of full steam ahead since last March. And then we'll, go back to our regular 12-month calendar, which will be, I think, probably good for us. But yeah, it's a whole new thing. And I think the timing, there's so many fairs now that you always will have other fairs going on around the same time. Obviously, we didn't think September was going to be quite as uh, packed as it is this year now because a lot of people have had to switch their calendars due to COVID. So I think also, in 2022, that time will look a little quieter than it will in 2021. But that's just the reality of having an art fair, is that there's going to be other art fairs that are happening 2 weeks before you or a month after you or whatever it is. So
So that's a great segue into I was going to ask you in any case. So what about the
mm-hmm.
ecosystem? I mean, the Armory Show is the Armory Show, but then the Armory Show also is the Armory Week, and it
Mm-hmm.
also means that there are satellite fairs.
Yeah.
Did you coordinate with them, or was this like you just let them know, or how does all that work?
Yeah. So, I mean, this year the Independent will be happening at the same time as us, and Art on Paper. So we know that those two satellite fairs are able to kind of join us in September, which is great. And I think that there'll always be some of that. I mean, that's what we hope, that there's satellite fairs and other events happening, and people kind of happening around the same time. So that just all, I don't think that will go away no matter when we were
But
put in
have they
place.
moved? Some of them you said have kind of moved in sync with you,
Yes.
but you anticipate that to be more widespread and more people moving over to your
Yeah,
slot.
I think there will be more people who align, but I think those two are, fabulous satellite fairs to happen at the same time as us, and we're
Right,
excited that they were able to do that. So,
right. And in fact, all over the world now, the very first of the physical fairs. I mean, last year we participated in the in Abu Dhabi Art, which is an art fair based in Abu Dhabi, but it was entirely a digital thing that we
hmm
did, which we quite enjoyed. And actually, to be perfectly honest, we made good sales also
good.
in
That's
this
great.
digital mode. But now the first of the physical fairs obviously are starting to open. So you guys
hmm
must have been watching, observing this very keenly, right?
We are, yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's amazing to have the fairs back, and feel like, the art world's coming back to that, and we're observing very closely, and learning from, the people who have to do it all before us. So there's a lot to take notes on for sure.
Sure, and for the art for exhibitors like myself, I mean, art fairs had become pre-pandemic a significant portion of our revenues, a significant part
hmm
of our annual sales. In
hmm
fact, I was telling you about galleries that I know of that had ceased physical operations with maybe
Right.
just a couple of desks being shared with somebody else, and we're entirely on the art fair circuit doing 3, 4, 5, 6 art fairs a year.
hmm
And maybe do you think that some of that will get shaken out a little bit, and there'll be fewer art fairs in 2022 than there were in 2019 or 2018?
I think it's hard to say, because also, kind of by that logic, if the galleries are having less physical spaces, then they want the physical space of the art fair. So I think there's kind of two ways galleries can approach it. They can either want less of their own physical space and their own overhead, and they want more physical presence at fairs and to travel internationally, and see their clients that way. Or they might want to invest more in their own overhead and less in travel to fairs, and cut down the fairs by a little bit. I mean, lots of galleries are doing, 5, 6, 8, 9 fairs a year. So I don't think the fair will go away for any galleries, but they might decide to do 3 instead of 6. So I think that will vary, like business model to business model and gallery to gallery,
So
and where you are to begin with. So
there won't be a big shift. You don't think, you don't anticipate things having permanently shifted up post COVID?
I don't think so. I don't know. Maybe this is skeptical of me, but I don't know that the art world will shift majorly in any kind of serious way. I think it works the way it works a lot of the time. I mean, maybe that's short-sighted, but I think it will all kind of suss out to be pretty similar to what we've seen in the past.
And what, maybe one thing, what are you most excited about the Armory, the new location, new timing? Is there
Mhm.
something in the fair that you're really looking forward to being put up, or what's one thing that you are really excited about?
Yeah. Well, my job is primarily to oversee the curated sections of the fair. So those are always very near and dear to my heart. But I'm also very excited, as you guys know, to see the new solo section of the fair, which is a very small section. It's around 10 galleries, and it's dedicated to solo artist presentations. And I think that's one thing that the Armory Show, just does incredibly well, is these, like, intimate, tightly, like, curated, thoughtful presentations within the larger fair. And I think it allows our exhibitors a chance to experiment and, you know, kind of go outside of the traditional fair booth, and also our visitors, you know, to kind of see art in a different way. So those sections, focus, platform, and solo, I'm really excited for this year.
And solo is a brand new section. It's the first time you're doing it. And
Yeah.
solo is the section which is where we will be participating and showing the work of Adila Suleiman, whose work I think you can see right behind me on top of my head, a little helmet. But that's Adila Suleiman's work right there. Of course, that's not the work we'll be showing, but solo is a new section, and solo is within the galleries section, but exhibitors or galleries doing one artist presentations, correct?
So it's its own section. So it's separate from the galleries kind of core section of the fair. But yes, it is all solo artist presentations in a particular, you know, area of the fair, and it's really exciting for us, I think, to, you know, there were no limitations on it in terms of how like presents, you can only be 15 years or younger. There was no kind of limits of that. It's just, it has to be a single artist. They could be historical, they can be up and coming. So I think that seeing those presentations together, and how people kind of chose to go with that prompt, will be really exciting.
And how are you sort of conveying this? I know that you are doing a much more concerted and much deeper dive into digitally presenting the Armory Show when it is happening. And that's natural. This is, we after all live in this post-pandemic world, or headed into it. How are you distinguishing these different sections, the nuances that form them? Like those who didn't catch you, what you were starting to say is that the single artist presentation appears in at least 2, perhaps 3 different ways in the fair. And the variegation is by kind of age of gallery, age of artist, kind of, you know, up and coming, well established, that sort of thing. How do you convey all this in a digital world?
So we are working with ArtLogic to do our digital platform for the fair this year. And our goal with working with them is to bring something that enhances the physical experience and isn't, you know, we don't want to just replicate digital, like everything we're doing in person digitally, because it's 200 galleries, so it would be a lot. But they are really, I mean, top notch to work with. They did FIAC's most recent digital fair. And so we're in the design phase right now, and we're working with them on all those things you just mentioned. You know, how do we bring these like very unique special sections that we have at the fair, and how do we translate that digitally? So that's kind of their job to figure out, but they're amazing, and we have, you know, so much faith that they'll be able to do that for us.
And will you also in the moment have your make a little bit extra effort in, say, you know, in the hashtags and in the social media posts and Instagram and TikTok? What are people doing? Again, for this reason that you are now depending on this amplification of energy, because physical presences, at least this year, will probably be smaller than the norm, and yet you are trying to reach, and yet in this 18 months, we've also built up the infrastructure of the Zooms of the world, you know, so how do we make that connection? So you will be kind of also figuring out how to amplify the moment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a super important platform that we're putting together. So we are working, you know, with our marketing and communications team on how to best disseminate that out in the world, and make it active and make it accessible at the fair. You know, that remains to be determined, but we want people to be able to say, oh, I liked that. I saw it in real life. How can I use it? Like, how digitally can I now access that information? So it has to go both ways, right? You have to be able to find it digitally and go through that route, but also connect from the fair and use it as a tool that way. So that's all in the works right now.
We are very excited to be showing at the Armory Show in September, and we are going to be showing Adila Suleiman, who also has a book coming out this year, and lots of other exciting stuff that's going on. So from our where we sit from our vantage, it's a very exciting year to be showing in the fair. So really looking forward to this, and it's, half an hour has gone by pretty quickly.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Well, thank you so
Thank you for
much.
joining us.
We're
Yes,
so
next.
excited to do this and to be working with you for 2021. So thank you. It's great to be here.
Thank you everyone for joining. Please be back next week. I will be talking to Gigi Scaria, an artist we represent who is Delhi-based or India-based. And so yeah, thanks Ellie. Thanks Armory Show, and we'll see you soon. And please come by the gallery. We have a great show. Seher Naveed and Affan Bakpati, 2 solo shows going through 29th of May. So if you and Nicole and others in your team come by, that'll be fantastic.
Awesome. Well, we will. Thank you.
And Katya says hi, Katya Larson, and
hi,
says
Katya.
Great talk. Yeah. Okay. See you everyone. Thanks a lot, Ellie. Thanks again. Bye.